We are honored to welcome one of our board members, Pete Kappelman. Pete brings a lifetime of experience to the role of Senior Vice President of Member and Government Relations for Land O'Lakes, Inc. as a successful crop and dairy farmer, along with his advocacy experience and board involvement with many agricultural organizations. Mr. Kappelman has been a leader in working with legislators on important ag policy issues, including the Farm Bill, trade, and immigration. He also served as an ag policy advisor to the administration for USDA and the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative, and was named Director of the Year in 2018 by the National Council of Farmer Cooperatives. His board service includes NMPF, the National Dairy Promotion and Research Board, the U.S. Dairy Export Council, the Professional Dairy Producers of Wisconsin, and the UW Center for Dairy Profitability. Pete is a fourth-generation farmer, having led Meadowbrook Dairy Farms with his wife, Shelley, and their 3 adult children, an operation consisting of 450 milking cows and 1,100 acres of cropland. Pete, thanks for being here with us today.
Absolutely. Happy to be here, Teresa. And I guess, can I start sharing my screen now?
Yep.
Okay. Hopefully this works. Are you seeing are you seeing my my title page?
Yep, it looks good, Pete.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you. Well, I am thrilled to be here. Thank you for asking me. It's truly an honor because at one time, just like you, I was excited to be engaged in the National Milk Young Cooperator Program. Now that was a few years ago. And I don't want the title on this screen to fool you. I'm not someone who spent a lifetime career in the corporate structure. So let me tell you a little bit more about myself that Teresa didn't mention. I grew up on this dairy farm with commercial herd, grade cows, attended University of Wisconsin-Madison to study dairy science and ag economics. And I have love for the dairy cow and a passion for the dairy industry. So you are here as an aspiring dairy leader. Well, what will the future bring? Well, we don't have all the answers to that. But what we do know is that the best way for you to predict your future is for you to create it. The world's run by those people who raise their hand and show up in the morning with purpose and with passion. You've either been nominated to be part of this program or you've self-elected to participate. We need strong leaders in all aspects of our lives. Yes, with our cooperatives, but also locally, whether it's in government, town boards, school boards, whatever it is. Being a leader in your business, on your farm, and in your family. So one confession I have to make before I start this is I've done through the years all kinds of personality profile analyses, and I am an introvert, right? So if I've been able to navigate through these opportunities that I have through my life, you have no excuse, right? The opportunity is yours. So let's talk about that opportunity. So I started out, like most of you, grew up on a farm. And that brings up our first survey question. I'm 13 years old on this picture. So you tell me what year this was. Was this 1965, 1975, 1985, or 1995? We'll wait for a few seconds to come in. That shouldn't take you too long to guess that. Meanwhile, this was a junior fair that was held in the local town. And I can give you some clues. If you look at the picture, there's some of the clothes that people are wearing, which might tip you off a little bit. So there you go. Survey results. 83% said 1975. That is correct. I was 13 years old, born in 1962. So let's move on. These pictures that are come up, the first one there on the upper left is a picture of me several years ago with our 3 kids. And now the 3 of them, along with one son-in-law, are managing Meadowbrook Dairy Farms in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. The farm is milking about 450 Holsteins and Brown Swiss, We crop about 1,100 acres, do all of our own forage harvesting, all of our own crop work, most of our own crop work, and raise all our replacements on site. So a lot of activities going on there. More to come on that. I did spend 23 years on the Land O'Lakes Board of Directors, the last 15 as chair. Land O'Lakes is a diversified dairy marketing and farm supply co-op celebrating its 100th anniversary this year. We started in the upper Midwest, but now we have dairy members and facilities from coast to coast, as well as local ag retail members from across the country. Our business units include not only our branded dairy foods business, but also Winfield United, which is our crop inputs, seed, crop protection, and crop nutrients business, as well as our Purina Animal Mills, Purina Animal Feed business, which is distributed also by our local ag retailers. In addition to that, we started 4 years ago our sustainability division, our on-farm sustainability division called TrueTerra. And we also have Venture 37, which is our international development business that we started 40 years ago. So I currently Senior Vice President of Member and Government Relations, working with not only our member relations on the ag side of our business and the dairy side of our business, but also our TrueTerra division, and I get my fingers into the Venture 37 also a little bit. So as a board member at Land O'Lakes, I had several opportunities to advocate for our farmers and for agriculture. I testified before Congress a couple of different times, as well as the International Trade Commission. Also had the chance to meet with President George Bush when he came to Northeast Wisconsin, which was an interesting conversation. He asked me how milk prices were doing. And at the time I said, well, you know, they're not too bad. And he said, well, I thought milk prices were never high enough for dairy farmers. So it was an interesting conversation. Well, here's a picture of our family. Well, today, not quite today. This picture's a little dated but it's only 2 years old. But since this picture was taken, there are 3 new family members, 3 babies born since this picture was taken just 2 years ago. So from left to right, we've got Greg and Beth Gerke, and Greg does not work on the farm, but he's holding Kenny, our oldest grandson. And Beth has now had 2 more baby girls to add to the family, and she is our bookkeeper, office manager, and pretty much helps with field work and up in the barn and with calves and as a herdsman where needed. So kind of all around. Then my wife, Shelly, and myself in the middle, and Shelly's a professional portrait photographer. So a lot of the great pictures that you see are from her. So I want to express my appreciation there. And then our son-in-law, AJ, holding our granddaughter, Claire, and our daughter, Erin, and they've got one more. They've got a son to add to this. And then our son, Mitchell, on the right. And Erin is in charge of calves right now, young calves and young stock, and Mitch is the herdsman for the milking herd and older heifers. So let's talk about how, and you can see, you know, from this picture, obviously I was not needed at the farm anymore. And the purpose of every leader should be to replace themselves, right? To build that capability so that they can move on to other things. And so since taking this role with Land O'Lakes not quite 2 years ago, my schedule has not gotten any less busy. And until this past March, we were very busy meeting in Washington, around the country, with elected leaders, governors. This is a picture taken about 15 months ago when Vice President Pence was in Wisconsin, and that's our CEO, Beth Ford. And it was a great meeting at a farm manufacturing company. Also, about a year ago, we take every chance we get to meet with high-level decision makers of both parties. So we work both sides of the aisle to achieve advocacy objectives on behalf of our members and all of agriculture as a whole. This picture was taken last October. And again, our CEO, Beth Ford, as well as our board chair, Rick Brand, board member, Dwayne Hershey, and myself. And that's Larry Kudlow in the back there up against the wall, along with President Trump. So in each of you, lies the ability to accomplish amazing things. Leadership is not something that's grabbed It's earned by you and then bestowed onto others by you. So the question is, why is that? What is it that makes or creates success in leadership? There are habits and characteristics about you that will draw others to you. We're going to go through some of those today. And this is not a college course. It's just a teaser because you can spend literally a career on this, right? This is just a teaser to whet your appetite. And this is where we're going to pull up survey question number 2. My question is, where did you first build your leadership interest or experiences? And this is just going to be interesting, I think, for all of our perspectives. It could have been in 4-H, like myself, or FFA, maybe high school sports, maybe your team captain or extracurricular activities, maybe math teams or plays and acting. Or was it in college, a dairy club or something like that? Post-secondary activities. Well, there we go. 4-H, 50%. FFA running in at 19%, high school 15, college 12, and farm and church groups 4. So, and I know a lot of you are probably involved locally, right? And my question was, where did you first get your leadership appetite developed? And it's important to see that. And I'm betting a lot of you are still involved in 4-H, although it's probably a little different the last 6 months. So let's move on a little bit here. We're going to cover these 3 areas today that I've learned are essential to your success as a leader. Call it the 3 Ps: purpose, preparedness, and passion. And when you can find the intersection, when you build the capacity in all 3 of these areas, and you hit that sweet spot where you're proficient in all 3 of these areas, you've got tremendous opportunity ahead of you. So let's start talking about these 3 areas. Let's start out with purpose. Each of you has this ability to accomplish great things. I know that. I know that in each of you, that ability is there. You've got the potential, but you have to put yourself in the position to participate in these great things. And you've got to dream about what you want to accomplish with your leadership, with your career, with your life. Because as Lewis Carroll said, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And literally, you can be on a road and you'll show up somewhere, but it may not be where you want to be. So set your goals and find your path. I want to tell you about this gentleman here. This is Dr. Dave Dixon. He was one of my college professors. He was a lifetime professor at University of Wisconsin. He coached the dairy judging teams for many years, most of his career. He judged more national cattle shows than any other judge, and he was really a mentor of mine. When I was about to graduate, I was asked to fill out the Dairy Shrine Senior Recognition Award contest. So I did, and I was nominated by Madison, but he called me into his office that spring before I was about to graduate. And he said, you've got a lot of work to do on this form, because about 30% of the form was plans for the future. And he said, what you've written down here are things you want to do, but he said, these are just dreams. He said, our purpose in life starts with a dream, but hoping your dreams come true are just wishes. Wishes are only granted by fairy godmothers. So he said, we're going to have to change your form and think about your goals. And what he taught me was you can really reach success with goals, with a logical, well-defined strategy. It helps to keep a personal journal, put it in a place, in a bedside stand or something where you can periodically look at your goals, update them, and list strategies to help you reach those goals. You've got to write down, and it's helpful, I think, to write down not only professional goals, but personal goals. And having this written down is going to help you get there. So let's move on to preparedness. There are things that you can do, and you need to do to prepare yourself to accept these responsibilities. So people have to know that they can trust and rely on you in order for you to have credibility. And trustworthiness is not determined by you. Others will decide if you are worthy to hold their trust. Will they be willing to place their trust in you? So, what personal traits are necessary for building this trust, belief, credibility in you as a leader? I believe it starts with integrity, honesty in all that you do, your personal life, your business life. Honesty does not have much gray area. It's pretty black and white. You also need to be sincere. What does that mean? It means doing what you say you're going to do. So keeping your promises, being worthy of other people's honor and respect, and then admitting your mistakes, right? Nobody is perfect. There's nothing that builds respect. Now, first of all, you don't want to make a lot of mistakes, especially more than once, right? But if you're willing to admit your mistakes, that builds credibility in other people's eyes. And then knowledge. Knowledge is not gifted or imparted. Intelligence is, but knowledge is not. Knowledge is earned. It's curiosity driven, wanting to understand, wanting to know how things happen, why things happen. Knowledge is built on truth. It's not impressions or interpretations. And so, in other words, it's probably hard to gain a lot of knowledge from today's national news because it seems like that's all you get is impressions or interpretations. I want the truth, right? And that's how you build your knowledge. You must constantly push yourself to stay on top of what's happening. You become a credible expert when you're knowledgeable on the subject matter, and you'll be trusted. It builds credibility. And wisdom, frankly, wisdom is something that we all crave, but it's a little tougher to come by. It's created through understanding. Wisdom is really, I think of it as putting knowledge to its best use. It's often earned through experience. Like, okay, I've been through that one before, and we're not going back there this time. So wisdom is really putting knowledge to its best use. Best way to think about it, learning from that. And then finally, you'll build credibility in people's eyes with your vision. Well, I spent a lot of years trying to figure out what is vision and how do you build a vision that people will come to rally around and respect? Well, vision is really a view and belief of what's possible. It is knowledge driven. It is based on your vision for the future is based on what you know to be possible, right? If you have the knowledge to know that this task that's ahead of us is possible. Now, this is where your dreams come in, because your dreams of what could happen when combined with your awareness of what you know to be true can make things happen. So a good description of vision is knowledge gift wrapped with inspiration. What I know to be true, what I know can happen, gift wrapped in a package with inspiration that we can accomplish whatever it is we set out to do. Then let's talk about passion. So I think of all the personal characteristics that you find in effective leaders, attitude is really the most important because it drives all of the other essential characteristics of leaders that we talk about. Attitude is really everything in my mind. So one of the quotes I found particularly meaningful to me and had hanging up in my office for a long time was from Dr. Charles Swindoll. And his quote is longer than this, so I'm going to read the whole thing. He said that the longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts. It's more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than successes, than what other people think or say or do. It's more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, or a home. But the remarkable thing is that we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play on the one string we have, and that is our attitude. And this is where he says, I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. So I think this is really important because it is easy to get down on ourselves, especially in agriculture, right? I mean, think of the events, the weather, the planning that goes in, and then unforeseen circumstances come in. We can prepare, we can do our best, and that sets us up for success. But how we deal with the things that we're not prepared for, the unpredictables, how we respond, our attitude is really will really determine how you succeed in life. So I think this is really important to leaders, all kinds of leaders. I found it to be valuable as a basketball coach. I found it to be valuable on the farm when we're getting rained out. We just got to, hey, move on to the next day and make the best of a tough situation. So another part of passion is, and this is around that attitude piece, but if you're really passionate, you're going to stir people's enthusiasm and you're going to arouse their imagination. You're going to build support for your ideas among those around you, and you'll be able to motivate people to act because they're going to start believing in you. This will drive your cause forward with all kinds of energy. And then the amazing thing that happens is that this will start building hope. Hope among your team, right? Hope among those you're working with. And I like to define hope as confident anticipation. People start believing that things can happen. And that's when this cycle drives itself, right? It builds on itself. When you start building that enthusiasm around this confident anticipation, hope, right, of what can happen, it can be incredible. Napoleon once said that a leader is a dealer in hope. Think about that. A leader is a dealer in hope, giving people hope. Hope allows people to believe in their dreams. Now, it's not a strategy. Hope is not a strategy. But when you couple it with strategy, it's very powerful. And again, people are inspired by passionate leaders. One last aspect of passion is your empathy. No one will care about what you know about listening to you until they know that you care. Because listening to someone, really listening, right? Understanding their feelings, sharing in their emotions builds respect for you, that credibility in their mind. And let me say that words are important, but over time, people will forget the words that you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. Whether it was feelings of support and confidence in a person or their future success that built them up and made them feel good, or whether the words you said were damaging to a person's confidence and self-esteem. You can control how people will feel about you because they will never forget how you made them feel. I want to tell you a little bit about a passion of mine that I've had through the years. I briefly described our Venture 37 International Development Group. It's been going on for about 40 years. This was a group that about 20 years ago, I was asked to go to Africa and speak at a conference representing Land O'Lakes. It was the Eastern and Southern Africa Dairy Alliance Conference. It was being held in Malawi. And it was about the value and the power of the co-op system, right? Because a lot of these countries, the farmers don't get much help from the governments. The governments don't have much money because you get money in government by taxing. And if there's not much income, you don't have much funding for government. So I didn't know what to expect, really had no idea what to expect. But I spent time in Kenya, in Malawi, and in Zambia. And I tell you what, it's nothing in Africa reminded me of anything here in the United States. It's a beautiful part of the world. It's a land of harsh realities. the reality is many families in sub-Saharan Africa live on less than $2 a day. And really, it's just a lack of opportunity for jobs, for careers, and even for basic education. It's just hard to do things on $2 a day. Most struggle to feed and clothe their families with the meager crops they grow on their small parcels of land. And it was on that first trip that I realized the power and opportunity that a single dairy cow can give a family. So this is Nolia mentingula. She is proof that a single dairy cow can take a family from poverty to wealth in their country. Daily milk provides not only the good nutrition for the family, but also the sale of the extra milk provides income for sending kids to school, purchasing the basic necessities of life. With this cow, Nolia was able to put a steel roof on her house and add a room. She was able to pay for school for her 2 boys, and she was able to purchase a bicycle along with a second dairy cow. Now, this program worked where the first female was donated back into the program to be given to someone else. So when she was able to purchase her second dairy animal, she was also then able to hire an employee. So this, remember, $2 a day average income, and what amazing things that one cow can do. In that same trip, we stopped at the Chitsanzo Milk Cooperative in Malawi. And this picture was taken in front of their milk bulking station, they're called. This was a brick building, 2-room brick building, an office, and what we would call a milk house. Had an old used 1,000-gallon milk tank, you know, the flat top milk tank with the 2 sides that lifted up. And this was a place where farmers would, from the local area, remember, on their bicycle or carrying it in, would bring in their extra milk, their buckets or their cans of extra milk, and sell it to the cooperative, get paid for it, and then be able to purchase inputs that they needed for themselves and their family. I want to call out the man in the upper right there, and his name is Mr. Solomon Thamuka, and he was the chair of the Chitsanzo Milk Cooperative Board. He's a very good man. He was a strong advocate and leader for his cooperative. He had demands for me. We had never met. He had demands for me that day when we met in the office, and what his village, what his local area needed. And these are all, like I said, small farmers by our standards, 1 or 2 cows, but they have a great attitude, a great will to survive and thrive. They just need a chance. So we were on our way to this conference, and so Solomon crawled on the bus with us, and when the bus ride went into the evening, and as we bounced across the pothole-ridden road, Solomon and I had a chance to talk. And as 2 farmers that were involved with their co-ops, what did we talk about? Well, we talked about cows and we talked about our families. And Solomon had 1 cow. So I said, well, tell me about your cow. And he said, well, she's dry. And I said, well, okay, so when is she going to calve? And he's like, well, she's not pregnant yet. And I thought, well, okay, so I know what happens to a dry cow on our farm when she's dry and open, right? And I said, well, what are you going to do with her? And he looked at me like I was just plain stupid. And he said, well, I'm going to keep breeding her. Because when you have 1 cow and you sell that cow, you have 0 cows. So your hope, your chance goes to 0 at that point. And he and his wife had brought 8 children into the world. At this point, 4 of them had died of AIDS or malnutrition-related diseases. So when I came home, I looked out the window at what I had at my farm, and I realized that I needed to act. I needed to do something, right? So we developed a nonprofit called Prosperity Worldwide that worked hand in hand with Land O'Lakes. It's a nonprofit NGO. I went to meetings raising funds to buy cows for Malawi, went to some member meetings, spoke to members after the meeting, went to Kiwanis meetings, went to church meetings, and we raised money for cows. Our little charity and our fundraising had in 3 years raised enough to buy 50 cows for families at the Chitsanzo Milk Cooperative for that village. And so the next year, 4 years later, we went back with a group of donors to see the impact of these cows, this one cow on each family that had been purchased for the village. And the impact was obvious. There was a celebration that had been planned, celebration of appreciation. Day-long activities were planned by the village for that day. Everyone turned out. There was celebration and dances, and there were plays. Just all around appreciation for the cows and those opportunities that they had been given, because they didn't have those opportunities before the extra cows showed up. But I noticed that Solomon was not there in attendance. And so I asked about my friend, the co-op leader, the family farmer. And I was informed that the cows had arrived too late for Solomon and his family. The nutrition, the income that would have supported medical care, and all those things that a single cow can provide did not arrive in time for Solomon. At this point, just 4 years later, all 8 of his children had died. So I know that a lot of you are at a point in your lives where you have children or just getting started with your families. And can you imagine not being able to help your family as you need to, as health technology and science allows, but as circumstances prevent you from helping them? So we have an opportunity, or should I say a responsibility, to do our part to address these issues. There are things that we can do. So this was just one of my passions in life. Can we do more? So we all play a role in agriculture's future prosperity. We all, each one of us, has a responsibility to ensure a better tomorrow. And that's what today is about. That's what this conference was about. You can make a difference. Each one of you will make a difference in people's lives. You have the ability. You can build the skills. The things I talked about are not impossible things to do. You may have to work hard at it, but they're not difficult to do. My challenge to you really is to not wait. Don't put it off. Let me tell you why. A long time ago, I did a careless thing. So I was probably, I think this was after my third year of college, came home for summer. So probably like the first week, or back home, anxious to get into things. I'd been picking rocks and was late for milking. So I was on my way to get back to the farm, and I had pulled the tractor and wagon with the rocks out onto the road, and the road was under construction, right? So it was closed. The road was closed. It was all graveled. And so in my mind, it's like, well, this is a closed road. So I pulled the tractor wagon out onto the road, but a couple of rocks fell off when I had pulled out of the field. So I was in a hurry, late for milking, road is closed, jump off the tractor, run across the road to grab those 2 rocks that fell off. And as I was running across the road, the closed road, I put my hand into the driver's side window of a car going 55 miles an hour. Didn't break a fingernail or anything. But had I been a little more athletically blessed, a little quicker, in other words, I'd have been a hood ornament on that car or underneath it. And the driver was just, I'm pretty sure he had to go home and change his pants, but I was not injured, right? So I knew that I was fortunate. And when I put my head on my pillow that night, I knew that things had changed. I realized that every new day is a gift to use that any way I could choose. Yesterday is history. Your plans should be laid for tomorrow, but today is your gift. It's your present. It's your opportunity. It's all yours. So don't wait. Use your gift today. So my closing wish for you is to dare yourself to dream. Arm yourself with knowledge. Wrap yourself with integrity, and live your life with passion. So that brings us to our last slide. And this will bring up our last survey question, and we'll take questions. We'll have some discussion. So there was a 2018 survey of 300,000 business leaders identifying the top leadership characteristics that they thought were necessary for success. So this is just for fun. I want you to choose 3 that you see as important for you and your situation. And so what I'm doing right now is helping you start setting your goals. There are no right answers. These 10 were the top 10 chosen by these 300,000 business leaders. So these are all important. So the 3 that you choose, I think, will be areas that you either feel you need to brush up on, that you'd like to build on, or areas that you see critical for your current situation, or maybe areas that you see valuable for your future participation in leadership. So I'm just learning that I should have clicked there. So let's, oh, the polls are coming in already, and we're seeing, need to try and figure out how to stop sharing. Can you do that for me by chance? I guess I can do it. There we go. So we're back up, and poll answers are integrity and honesty at 79%. Number 1. Number 2, strong communication skills. Actually, that was number 3. Number 2, strategic thinking. Number 3 was strong communication skills. Number 4, relationship building capacity. Number 5, inspiration and motivation. Number 6, issue analysis and problem solving. And then in there, we've got results driven. What's interesting, what I find really interesting, is that we all got 0 votes, technical and professional expertise. So think about that, technical and professional expertise. 0 votes. Why is that? I mean, we went to college for that, right? And we read magazines. It's because we gain that every day. We're all experts in what we do. And I think this was really telling for me and how important that you think honesty and integrity is. So I think we can open this up for Q&A. Teresa, how are we going to handle this?
This is Tony. Yes, we'll do Q&A. If you have a question for Pete, please enter it in the Q&A box at the bottom. I'll just say for myself, this has been really inspirational. If only we could get this type of inspiration every day. But in the meantime, while we have some questions coming in,
you know, what's interesting is I've done some version of this. I apologize if you were at Young Dairy Leaders Institute, you would have seen a version of this, and some of you have been maybe. But this is good for me to remind myself of these things often. So that's why I say, you know, writing these things down and putting it in a place where a journal or something, where a place where you can remind yourself how important these things are, because daily stuff happens. And in today's world, COVID and dealing with everything that, you know, if you've got young kids in school and the farm, and by the way, our milk price is going to be $23 or $13. And right now we have both for November, class 3 at 23 and class 4 at 13. So there's a lot of stuff going on, but if you can find a way to work this in, start working it in.
Sure. So once again, if you have questions, put them in the Q&A box. A lot of our YC participants have already proven they're willing and able to develop their leadership role by participating in the YC program itself. But could you provide some advice for those interested in taking on a larger role within the cooperative specifically?
You know, the leadership development programs were valuable because we did not only the National Milk one, but we did our own co-ops program. We worked with our AI co-op. We went through that program. That's why I went through all these personality profile tests, because every time we went to a program, we did one. And after a while, I learned how to take them, right? So I wasn't as introverted anymore. But I think, you know, the piece, the willingness to put yourself out there and not succeed was really important. There was one day, it was early in my board career. I was 32 when I got elected to the corporate board. 33 when I got elected as secretary of the board. And then we did a couple mergers, and there were new board members, and there was some feeling about, dividing out leadership responsibility. So I was an easy target, right? I was the young guy. I was, the new guy. And so that day I lost 3 elections in the boardroom. I lost the secretary spot. I was nominated for the chair of the dairy committee. I lost that election. I was nominated for the vice chair of the dairy committee. I lost that election. And finally secured a seat on stayed on the executive committee, which was helpful. And, my head was spinning, because it's like, wow, I just lost 3 elections. That's not easy, right? It's not easy for the ego, but having confidence in yourself, and the eagerness to participate, and the willingness to build and improve and listen and grow. Growing isn't easy, because it requires that you stretch, and stretching the older you get, stretching hurts, right? So it's not always easy to stretch and grow. And it was, I think, that willingness to take an honest look at yourself and admit when you've got room to grow, and admit, what you can do to grow.
Great. We got one question here. How do you find time to prioritize leadership roles while raising a family and running a farm? Question I'm sure a lot of our participants have is they struggle to manage
that was a tough one. And the question was really, sometimes there wasn't a good answer. I know that I remember one year, this was 2009. It was the year that we put together what was originally called Foundation for the Future, which is now DMC, Dairy Margin Coverage, or DMC, Dairy Margin Coverage Program, what turned into that. And National Milk put it together, and I was part of that committee, and there was a committee meeting called, and I had to go to Chicago, I think it was, but it was spring of the year, and it was playoff time, and the Milwaukee Bucks had finally made the playoffs, and I had bought tickets for the kids and I to go watch the Milwaukee Bucks in playoffs, and I had to ask my brother to take my kids to the playoff game. And that was kind of hard, actually. But there were opportunities, right? Because that second time we went to Africa, I paid for the kids to go, right? It was not paid for by Land O'Lakes. My wife and I, and took all 3 of our kids. So I think it created opportunities for us. And I think there are puts and takes. There are times when you have to peel back a little, but then there's times when you can step it up a little. And I tell you what, being a good leader at the farm, assigning leadership responsibilities, giving authority at the farm, and requiring accountability is important for you to get away. These leadership skills are important all over the place.
One more question here. What would your advice be for encouraging and embracing of diversity in board leadership and in the industry as a whole?
That's been a challenge for our industry, and it's been a mission of mine for a long time. I served in my time on the board, Land O'Lakes, with two women that were elected to the board, one from the dairy side of the membership and one from the ag side of the board. The challenge in dairy especially is we don't have a lot of cultural diversity. We have, of course, gender diversity, and it's really important. I don't see leadership as, I've just never seen opportunity or responsibility as any sort of, having any sort of diversity limitations. But I realize it's important that there are perceptions out there, and there are people's opinions that need to be challenged, and we need to push that. So it's important that we recruit leaders from a diverse group, that we encourage people to participate in leadership from a diverse group. And then it's also important, if you're coming from an area where you feel like, well, this is going to be tough for me, where there might be a challenge, to have that confidence, right? You need to be steeped in knowledge and steeped in integrity and trustworthiness. And leaders rise to the top. I mean, our CEO, Beth Ford, is prime example of that.
Well, this has been a great conversation with you, Pete. We really appreciate the time you take out of your schedule to speak with us today.